The Legend of the Virgin Flower. At that time, there were two women in a family, both of whom, in turn, devoted themselves to their husbands serving as soldiers. Two men left one after another, but only one returned. That brave warrior returned to the village with the shouts of support, strutting around in the king's hat and bringing glory to his family. But when welcoming her husband, the second woman cried silently. The belt, the hat, the benefits the king bestowed, all are beautiful, but my hair and his have suddenly turned the color of dew. So, in the third life, the woman had just given birth and was crying when both her mother and father clasped their hands. Oh, Buddha, another crime. But this time, we won't marry him to any soldier. For 2 generations, we've waited until our hair turns gray. Isn't that enough? The little girl grew up as tender as a rosebud. From childhood until adulthood, her family did not allow her to talk to any soldiers so that she could keep her old curse. One morning, in the distance, the sound of 5-lot drums could be heard. The girl walked out into the garden, to the dew-soaked hedge. The boy next door is hastily packing his bags and leaving. Originally a young couple who used to play together, they looked at each other and then bowed their faces, the dark hair on the boy's lips shaking slightly. The sound of the drums pounded. The boy was bold. So, do you wait? Why don't you ask if the rose hips bloom before the sun comes up? The girl bit her lip, tears rolling down her cheeks. And so the boy's face turned red to the roots of his hair. Feeling lightheaded as if he had just gained wings, he said, I can leave, even though my body is covered with horse skin. The girl came back in, her eyes watery and absent-minded like a sick person, surrounded by the distant sound of a 5-string drum. So the whole family knows. They blamed each other. Then the 2 women hugged each other and cried. The girl lit 3 incense sticks to pray to her late husband, Grandpa. Perhaps your nephew is right, because I realize that if he were to come back to life now and go to war again, I would still be waiting for him. Oh, what a woman. The girl's mother sobbed. It's only because of me. It was I who gave you the waiting blood. How can I be different? The father tried to dismiss. There must be a girl waiting for him, just like in the old days. In this house, she waited for me. Now, I can only hope that boy returns. But the boy did not return soon. The new recruit enthusiastically killed the enemy in a few battles, and then the star of destiny smiled at him. The king was good at choosing people. As soon as he saw the young man, he immediately realized that this was an infinitely loyal servant. So, he withdrew the young man, staying close to him day and night, never leaving even a single step. When the enemy was fighting, the king needed him to put his muscular chest out to cover enemy bullets, but when the enemy was over, the king needed him even more to maintain his ultimate authority. He is the perfect punishment blade, ready to strike down anyone's head. At the king's command for 17 years, the girl waited for that soldier. From a young woman like a budding flower bud, she has become a girl past her prime. Her grandmother, then her parents followed each other back to the Buddha realm. Before they closed their eyes, they all called their daughter to the bedside and said, "Tomorrow, if we give birth to a daughter." The girl cried quietly when her grandmother and parents died, cried quietly when her lover returned or died in battle, and finally, quietly mourned her past lover, because for more than 10 years, he had passed away. Credit. Then one afternoon, there was the sound of horse hooves approaching the steps. Stepping down from the saddle was a weathered man who looked at everything from top to bottom, through eyes as cold as steel. Across his waist, he wore the king's golden belt. It was his reward after he stabbed his old friend in the back. This friend had the courage to stop the king when he ordered a famous general to be beheaded. This man, because of his poor eyesight, offered the king an apple that was eaten by worms. After that bloody party, the king promoted him and allowed him to return home after more than 10 years away. Over the past 10 years, that soldier still hasn't forgotten his old lover. In the middle of a dusty life, in the middle of a royal court full of poisonous schemes, the good virgin bit her lips and tried to swallow the tears of separation, still not faint but strange, even more like the distant moon calling him back. The girl took a few steps forward and then froze. She wondered confusedly, wondering if it was the boy next door who was timid before daring to ask, "So, are you waiting?" But when that man called her name with a familiar voice, she cried. Her cry sounded like 1,000 pieces of glass falling, because she had to wait for too long, and the person she was waiting for has now turned into a man with a vision. Cold as steel. Neighbors raced to congratulate her. The men who work in the profession of tapping children's heads preach the faithful love of two people in classrooms. So from then on, there were more boys who only dreamed about battle, dreaming about one day being able to serve a king. As for the little girls, they only wish that one day they will grow up and be able to wait for their lover until the time comes. Without any delay, the two faithful lovers were married. The king gave a purple robe to the untimely virgin, and the wedding was incredibly solemn. At dusk, next to the wine cup next to the dinner table, the guests widened their eyes as they listened to the groom's story. After 10 years of serving the king, he was used to keeping his mouth shut, and it only rises when the wine is drunk. But he didn't know what else to talk about other than killing. He talked about bloody feasts and feasts during peacetime and passionately described the ways different people died at the hands of his sword. Finally, the king gave him the golden belt. The virgin heard her newlywed husband's story, and she could no longer stand. Staggering, she slowly retreated back to the room. Nestled on the bed in the dark, she seemed to smell the foul smell of blood, and on her face there seemed to be cold lips of unjust souls passing by. She got up, trembling, and quickly lit all the peanut oil lamps she found in the room. The flickering red light made her even more scared. Just then, there was a sound of the door jamming. The huge body of the newlywed husband staggered in. Out of habit, he still carried the sword. She looked up and saw that he had not come in alone. Following immediately behind him was a clear-haired woman. Only her hair still had color, dressed in mourning clothes, holding up a bloody shirt and speaking in a strangely monotonous voice, repeating over and over again like never-ending. "Give me my husband back, the one who killed you, before you entered your wedding bed. Please return the father to my 5 young children. Please pay." Yet her husband didn't hear anything. He put the sword against the wall, then approached and placed his hand on her chest. At that moment, she saw blood from the shirt in the woman's hand with her hair falling onto her newlywed husband's hands. She covered her face and screamed in horror. "Oh, look, blood. There's so much blood. Both hands are red." Her husband looked back in surprise. He still couldn't see anything, except for the horizontal and vertical scars on his hands. He coaxed, "Oh, be brave, sentimental sister. It's just because I'm too nervous. How many days have we been waiting for this moment? Come on, cheer up." He said that, but his mouth did not smile, and his eyes were still cold as steel. Just like from the day he returned until now, no one had seen him smile. The virgin removed her hands and covered her face. She could no longer see the woman with loose hair, but on her face that was approaching her face, She only saw the corners of her mouth tightly pursed and a cold look like the look of death. Again frightened, she begged, "Please smile. I beg you, smile so I can see the old you. After so many years of waiting, I don't want you to be sad." The husband tried his best to smile. It's been a long time since he did that gesture, so now he doesn't know how to start a smile. With great difficulty, he remembered that when smiling, people must reveal at least one row of teeth. He curled his lips, revealing 2 strong teeth. But he forgot that when people smile, it is the eyes that smile first, the mouth that smiles second. Even just smiling with the eyes is enough. If the eyes want to smile, the soul must first smile, so when he tries to smile, he looks even more ferocious and threatening like a wolf. Immediately, his wife cringed and turned her face inside, sobbing and trying to hold back her tears. The sad husband looked in the mirror and smiled, looked closely at himself, then despaired. "Well, that's it. A lifetime of waiting. You reject me, do you loathe me?" He slumped over the edge of the bed, then roared like a wounded animal. "Why did you wait for me all your life, then reject me? Why do you make me laugh? Where is the guy with the long hair on his lips from the past? I have become the man who does not smile of the royal court, since this hand was dipped in the blood of my friends, at banquet tables full of delicious delicacies. The king sent me to kill all those who disobey his orders with chopsticks. In every gold-encrusted chopstick at the banquet table, there is a delicate blade hidden inside." He sobbed, his shoulders shaking violently. "Oh, my friend," the friend who leaned on each other's backs to find warmth against the cold wind of the trenches. "Well, that's it, and this is the farewell wedding night, the final reward for the soldier who has served the king for more than half his life." The newlywed husband's violent sobs shook the whole room. Then, taking his sword in hand, he left the country. Some people said that he came to find the king, intending to force him to pay for the crime that had turned him into a man who could not smile. But the king was able to kill him first, with one of the gold-encrusted chopsticks at the banquet table. There are also people who say that he has plunged into new killing sprees without worrying about forgetting the days. Only the untimely virgin remains in her hometown. She lived silently like a shadow, without once thinking about freeing herself through death. But she couldn't get rid of the habit of raising her hands to cover her face whenever there were footsteps or loud noises. One day, the village chief was invited to make a death certificate for her. She died with her hands covering her face, and no matter how much the mortician tried to hold her, she would not let go. A few days later, on her grave, a short, lanky plant with a sad purple heart shape grew. Every time a foot steps over or makes a strong impact, the rolling leaves startle and close, falling down like someone's hand covering their face. The flowers and grass growing around were very strange about that. One day, they stopped Mr. Wind. "Hey, Mr. Geo. Here, there is no one as old as you or as young as you. So please tell us why that new species of tree is so ordinary, hanging out on the edge of the grass, easily stepped on by pedestrians. There is nothing special that needs to be preserved, just a little bit and then taken away. Cover your face with your hands. Do it gracefully." As experienced as Mr. Geo, he still couldn't answer. So one quiet, gentle night, with all the flowers and grass dreaming in peaceful sleep, the wind guy glided over to that ordinary plant and asked softly, "Hey, little sister, why do you always cover your face? Is someone here making fun of you? Are you very shy? If not, why do people call you the Virgin Tree?" After pondering for a moment, the plant gently replied, "It's not like that. Even though I die, I'm still a virgin. I covered my face because I was afraid. Nowadays, people fight with each other even more fiercely, and there are still many blood-soaked banquet tables. So, every collision, every passing step, makes me startled. I'm afraid people will send me bloodied hands and an old lover's face that doesn't know how to smile." The virgin tree suddenly cowered because it had just heard footsteps passing by. Those are the parallel footsteps of a couple walking in the fog. Before carefully closing the leaves, the virgin tree pleaded, "Oh, dear Buddha, pray that these are not the footsteps of those who have to send each other off to that place." Please press the like and subscribe buttons to the channel so you don't miss any other interesting videos. Please leave a comment below if you have any questions or opinions about the story. Thank you for listening and see you in the next stories.